Good evening, everyone, and welcome, Dharma brothers and sisters, to another term of Rongton Buddhist Training College philosophy classes, which we're now holding on Thursday evenings. This is term 3 of 2024. So we have about 10 people on Zoom this evening, as well as a handful here in person at our holder in Canberra. And this term, Lama Choedak Rinpoche, in the spirit of non-sectarianism, not just within Tibetan Buddhism, but in Buddhism in general. He will be teaching on a famous text of the Theravada tradition called the Visuddhimagga, the Path of Complete Purity, by a master called Buddhagosha. So in case there's anyone new online, I'll introduce our teacher, Lama Choedak Rinpoche. Rinpoche was born into a nomadic family in Tibet and went on to train as a monk under some of the most eminent Tibetan masters of the last generation in India and Nepal. He completed a 3.5-year solitary meditation retreat, which earned him the title Lama, or spiritual teacher. He later earned the title Rinpoche in recognition of his translation skills and his expertise in transmitting traditional teachings to contemporary audiences such as ourselves. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors, committee and technical team who all work very hard to make these teachings available. So I hope you enjoy the teachings for this 8-week term, and I'll leave you all with Rinpoche. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamila, and good evening and good whatever time it is for you to tune in with me and everyone of the Tibetan Buddhist Society of Canberra. We have encouraged to make these teachings a little bit easier for people to attend, because it's not as late as usually we start at 7:45. And then goes to about 9:30. So we therefore have moved from Tuesday late evenings to early evening of Thursdays. So hopefully it is makes it easy for you. So we are actually encouraging people to attend in person, but I don't think we have succeeded to put on a website as such. So someone really need to look after these things, but nevertheless we are here starting tonight, and we'll continue to do so. So as Jamila mentioned, this term we are starting a new subject and textbook, so which I have time to talk about. But first, as usual, we will do the refuge for immeasurables, as usual, during which I ask you to tune your mind and thoughts, feelings, attention, and devotion in listening to these teachings. Oyenda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aitere Pete Laidame Bhavache Ayevendala Ashare Buddha Utuve Enda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aitere Pete Laidame Bhavache Ayevendala Ashare Buddha Utuve Enda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Aitere Pete Laidame Bhavache Ayevendala Ashare Buddha Utuve. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power of happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, and those never. May all beings have happiness and a cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and a cause of suffering. May they know a power of happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion, and those never. Now we recite the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra mantra for 21 times while meditating on the meaning of the Heart Sutra. Gade gade barang gade barazam gade buddhazo gade gade barang gade barazam gade zo gade gade barang gade barazam gade buddhazo gade gade barang gade barazam gade buddha gade gade barang gade barazam gade buddhazo gade gade barang gade barazam gade buddha gade gade barang gade barazam gade zo gade gade barang gade barazam gade buddha gade gade barang gade barazam gade buddhazo gade gade barang gade barazam gade buddhazo gade gade barang gade barazam Gadem Buddha, Gadem Gade Barang Gade Barazang Gadem Buddha So, 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 Gadem Gade Barang Gade Barazang Gade Buddha So, Gadem Gade Barang Barazang Gadem Buddha So, Gadem Gade Barang Gade Barazang Gadem Buddha So, Gadem Gade Barang Gade Barazang Gadem Buddha Gadem Gade Barang Gade Barazang Gadem Buddha So, Gadem Gade Barang Gade Barazang Gadem Buddha So. So, welcome again, everyone. Our topic during this term, and maybe also a few more terms, because this subject that we are studying is called Path of Purification, Vishuddhimagga. This is a very famous textbook in the Theravadin tradition. And the author is a very famous Buddhist monk called Buddhagosha, who is reputed to have lived in 5th century, and his writings had great influence. He himself traveled to Sri Lanka, and there he became a great exponent of the teachings, and he had gained great follower. And then it is said that his textbook became very famous to many other Buddhist Southeast Asian Buddhist countries, and it is said that it was also translated into Chinese. So I doubt it was translated into Tibetan. But I know in some recent scholars at the Varanasi Tibetan University, there is a group of scholars who are translating this into Tibetan, because they realize how early and classically important text this is. So I'm very happy that they are putting effort into that, because there is the feeling among Tibetans as we have the most comprehensive form of text. But I think we are now discovering there are many texts that were not translated into Tibetan that are found in Chinese translations, as well as in Pali and so on. Particularly writings by scholars like Buddhagosha, who's regarded largely as a Theravadin, but the Tibetans have also identified someone by the name of Buddhagosha as the author of some Mahayana literature. So definitely there may be different individuals who share the same name. But in any case, what is my main purpose of starting to look at book texts like this is to try to fill the gap, thinking that schools are very different, Theravada and Mahayana, but they're not very different at all. Theravada and Mahayana and Vajrayana are different ideologies. And even the Mahayanists who claim all of the Nalanda Panditas are all starting with Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna is only 2nd century AD. Now, 2nd century AD is almost like 700 years after Buddha passed away. So this means between Buddha's passing away up until then, where did the teachings the Nalanda scholars are believed to have written commentary on? So definitely Nalanda Panditas had their own teachers. So people like Buddhagosha, who are not so much celebrated Mahayana scholars, have already written commentaries. So it wasn't the Nalanda Panditas who were the first commentators. Who can't be, because people like Buddhagosha. Buddhagosha is also not the first commentators. The commentators are called Shastras. Commentaries are called Shastras. And Sutras, Abhidharma, and Vinaya are the Tripitaka, 3 collection of teachings of the Buddha. So there are no dispute about their authenticity among Theravadins, Mahayana, and even Vajrayanists. They wholly accept the Tripitaka. Whenever you open, whenever I read any Theravada Sutras, Vinaya, Abhidharma, there is nothing I could disagree. They're all authentic teachings, and I could not agree. So therefore, I don't see it as some Theravada text or lesser school text. They are original teachings of the Buddha. That is called Tripitaka. And people like Buddhagosha and his contemporaries, and some other scholars who are much earlier than him, they all wrote commentaries. So they are in Theravadin tradition. There were other books that were written much earlier than those by Buddhagosha as well. So I wouldn't go into them. So what I wanted to say is that it's very important that we study these texts, read these texts, so that we actually dispel our own ignorance that the so-called Theravadin teachings and texts are authentic teachings of the Buddha. And the fact that it was written in Pali or translated into Sinhalese or Burmese is to the delight of Sinhalese and Burmese, because they were able to read the original teachings of the Buddha from Pali into their language. But what was written in Pali were all completely acceptable for Mahayana, like student like me who may think he's a Mahayana, but it's very hard to be a Mahayanist. To be Mahayanist, you have to be completely selfless. You have to have taken a vow of selflessness and should treat everybody with selfless view. So that's not the case. A lot of Mahayanis are very, very arrogant, thinking their teachings is superior to the Theravadin. And so on. I think this is one of the reasons why there is a misunderstanding. So in order to fill the gap of misunderstanding is because we don't understand. We have never heard or studied the Theravadin text. So when I read the texts like Vishuddhimagga as the commentary literature on which is commentary on there are 3 Theravada literatures, the short, the middle length, and the very elaborate, sutras. So all of them are completely like the nectar. Whenever I read them, there is nothing I could disagree. They are totally congruent with the teachings of the Buddha. So therefore, it is good that we can do this. Now, this book is fairly big book, and it's written mostly as a commentary. So he quotes some root texts from the sutras, and then give commentaries, which is really, really, in many ways, a lot more easier to understand. There's no cryptic, and nothing is cryptic about these things. It's a plain truth. It has 23 chapters, and it is mainly deals with the 3 Tripitakas. The Tripitakas is the Vinaya Pitaka, then Sutra Pitaka, Abhidhamma Pitaka. So that's that. But actually, they means discipline, meditation, and wisdom. So discipline is the Shila. And then the meditation is sutra and samadhi, what we call samadhi, and then the prajna is the wisdom. So these three are the main topics, and so therefore here we are going to go over whatever we can tonight on chapter 1. The chapter 1 is a description of virtue. By the way, this book called the Vishuddhimagga, or Path of Purification, is readily available online as a PDF file. So I strongly recommend you all, if you not have already from tomorrow onwards, you should always get downloaded or read it regularly as with the class. Then we will be really studying, reading these texts. So. Chapter 1 is called Description of Virtue. It's called Shila Nidesha. Shila means virtue or discipline. Nidesha is description, explanation. In its introductory verse, it says, when a wise man establishes well in virtue, means discipline, develop consciousness and understanding, then as a bhikshu, ardent and sagacious, succeeds in disentangling this tangle. So that's the root verse. This was said, but why was it said? So when was this said? By whom? When the Blessed One, the Buddha, was living in Shravasti, it seems a certain deity came to him at night, and in order to do away with his doubts, he asked this question. So the deity is some kind of entity came to ask the Buddha. The inner tangle and the outer tangle, this generation is entangled in a tangle. So I asked Gautama this question. Who succeeds in disentangling this tangle? So that is the question put to the Buddha by our entity. So here because this is a commentary, it goes to explain what the tangle is. The tangle is a term or network for craving. It's a visual image of a craving. We are tangled up with the cravings. For that is a tangle in the sense of lacing together, like the tangled called network of branches of bamboo thickets, because it goes on arising again and again, up and down among objects of consciousness, beginning with what is visible. So it's like talking about how the mind gets really tangled, But it is called inner tangle and outer tangle because it arises as craving for one's own requisites and another's, for one's own person and another's, and for internal and external consciousness. Since it arises in this way, this generation is entangled in a tangle. As the bamboos are entangled by the bamboo tangle, etc., so too this generation, in other words, this order of living beings, is all tangled in the tangle of craving. The meaning of that which is intertwined, interlaced by it. And because it is tangled like this, so I asked Gautama this question. That is why I asked this. He addressed the Blessed One on his clan name because he addressed the Buddha Gautama. Gautama was one of the family names of the Buddha, like Shakyamuni, like the Shakyas. Who succeeds in disentangling the tangle? Who may disentangle this tangle that keeps the three kinds of existence entangled in this way. The three kinds of existence means desire, form, formless realm. All the beings, from the lowest hell beings to the humans and the demigods and gods and the desire, form, all are entangled in these cravings. And so here, and who is going to be capable of disentangling this outer and inner tangling? So this is often our own situation. We are so tangled up in self-grasping or desire or sadness or fear or worry or whatever. We're so tangled up, we don't know how to cut, and we don't know where to cut to disentangle it. Who is capable? What makes a person possible to learn to disentangle this tangle? So, however, when questioned thus, the Blessed One, whose knowledge of all things is unimpeded, deity of deities, Buddha is called deity of deities, or Lai La in Tibetan, excelling Chakra, the king of gods. Chakra means the giver of 100 gifts. Excelling Brahma, fearless in the possession of all 4 kinds of perfect confidence, wielder of 10 powers, so this is talking about the Buddha, all-seer with unobstructed knowledge, uttered this stanza. So then Buddha replied, when a wise man established well in virtue develops consciousness and understanding, then as a bhikshu ardent and sagacious succeeds in disentangling this tangle, because that was the first verse that this quoted from, my task is now to set out the true sense divided into virtue and the rest. And the rest refer to meditation and wisdom. Of the same verse composed by the great sage, there are here in the victor's dispensation seekers gone forth from home to homelessness. So this is having gone to homelessness is one of those names for renunciate who have given up desire and attachment in order to disentangle their outer entanglement with the material possessions and whatever, and the inner entanglement due to craving and grasping, whatever. So they actually go from home to homelessness, and who, although desiring purities, because the purity is to be free from that entanglement, have no right knowledge of the sure straight way, comprising virtue and the other two. Right hard to find that leads to purity. Who though they strive, here gain no purity. To them I shall expound the comforting path of purification. Path of purification means Shuddhimagga. Shuddhimagga or Vishuddhimagga came from the very idea of, by learning the Dharma, these teachings, that you actually learn how to purify mind and become disentangled. Pure in exposition, relying on the teachings of the dwellers in the great monasteries. So meaning the teachings are those who have realized, who not only go to, but who dwells and live there and realize, let all those good men who do desire purity listen intently to my exposition. So here the Buddha explains, so these very verses that we read through is now explained. Purification should be understood as a nibbana. In Pali they call nibbana, in Sanskrit we call nirvana, basically same, which being devoid of all stains is utterly pure. So pure here refers to nirvana, So path of purification is the path to that purification. It is the means of approach that is called the path. Why it's called path means that it allows you to make an approach and go from place to place, state of mind, deluded mind to pure state of mind. So that's why I call path. Magga is the path, marga. The meaning is... Meaning will be explained. In some instances, this path purification is taught by the insight alone. Means this real pure path purification only can be realized by insight of realizing emptiness. So therefore, while we need insight to gain true purity, so the other two, the meditation and the Shila, the dhyana and Shila, Samadhi and Shila are the two legs in order to gain the vision of insight, vision of insight. And so then the teaching says, formations are all impermanent. when he sees thus with understanding, he turns away from what is ill. That is path to purity. So this is quotation from Dipavamsa text called Dipavamsa, saying that all formation are impermanent. So however entangled things are, they are just formations. So whatever is a formation, they are impermanent. They can be disentangled. They can be, reformed. So when the person sees this with understanding, he turns away what is ill. So whatever is ill, such as desire, craving, attachment, fixation, and stubbornness, he will able to turn away from that, and that turning away from the ill and causes of the illness is the purity. Because one is turning from illness, sickness, and stubbornness to what is not stubborn. And therefore, that is the path. Path is adopting the way that leads freedom from the illness and therefore purity. And in some instance, by jhana means meditative absorption and understanding, it is said, here is near unto Nibbana, in whom are jnana and understanding. Again, it says in Dipavamsa that the nirvana is not far for anyone who can enter into jhana. Jhana is a meditative absorption. And in the meditative absorption, you gain the vipassana, the insight, insight. And in some instances by deeds, So deeds means if you have virtuous deeds, by deeds, vision and righteousness, because virtuous deeds and vision and righteousness, by virtue sublimest life, by these are mortals purified, and not by lineage and wealth. So incredible, yeah. Here the lineage, was talking about status, yeah, because in India there was this caste system. People think they're born high because they are birthright, or due to their status, or due to wealth. The wealth and lineage does not purify. By these mortals are purified by what? By good deeds and vision of right view, and the self discipline. So this is also quotation from one of the sutras. It says, he who is possessed of constant virtue, not just virtue, but constant virtue, who has understanding and is concentrated, who is strenuous and diligent as well, will cross the flood, so difficult to cross. So here they give you the image of the entanglement as a flood, because the water is swelling and you can't cross. But the person who has these constant virtue, meaning self-discipline, shila, and who has understanding why he is observing the shila, and who has concentration, meditation, and who is diligent, he will be able to cross, meaning drop his bad habits, and pick up the discipline, diligent in study, listening, meditation, and constantly abstaining from non-virtue and adopting virtue. When he or she does that, will cross the flood. Flood refers to anger, desire, in which people are drowned in their desire and attachment and addiction and clinging and distractions. So they are never free because they are completely embroiled in the flood of their desire. When one adopts the discipline to take time, such as to study Dharma like this, like we are learning to study and read the Vishuddhimagga, if we keep doing this once a week, over a couple of terms, we would have a reasonable comprehension of these holy texts, and then you will know how to put aside your flood-like desires and cravings and stubbornness and so on. That's what it is. In some instances, by the foundation of mindfulness, according to it said bhikshus, this path is the only way for the purification beings, for the realization of nibbana, that is to say, the four foundation mindfulness. Yeah, mindfulness of body as is impure, and feeling as impermanent, and self as a not truly existing, nirvana as ultimate peace. And similarly, in the case of right effort and so on. Yeah, right effort, yeah, right. And so on means all the 37 factors of enlightenment. But in answer to this question is taught that the virtue and other two. So the virtue and other two are Shila and Samadhi and Prajna. Shila, Samadhi, Prajna are the three really main key terms in Theravada. In the Mahayana too, even Mahayana, without the Shila, without the strong foundation of self-discipline, whether it's Bodhisattva or Mahayana or Vajrayana, whatever, if oneself is not true to one's own Samaya, then one will never be liberated by anybody's power or blessings or wisdom. One will only be liberated by one's own discipline, meditation, and wisdom. So here is a commentary on what it means by one who's established in virtue, the standing on the virtue, meaning one is standing by the virtue, the discipline. It is only when one actually fulfilling virtue who is here said to stand on virtue. So the meaning here is being established well in virtue by fulfilling the virtue. A man, a living being, wise, meaning a person who possesses kind of understanding that is born of karma by means of rebirth linking with triple root cause. Develop consciousness and understanding means develop both concentration and insight. Concentration means meditation. Insight means the wisdom. Because remember, the Theravada literature, they use concentration for meditation. They use insight for wisdom. So when we will call that calm abiding and in insight. Concentration means calm abiding. Insight means wisdom. For it is concentration means meditation that is described here under the heading of consciousness. Because when you're concentrating, you become very conscientious. And insight under the heading of understanding. Yeah, insight is an understanding, wisdom. So one who's ardent, meaning possessing energy, ardent really meaning one who possesses energy, the energy that is called ardor in English. Ardor means in Pali atapa, in the sense of burning up. It's very heated up. When you have energy, when you're very diligent, your energy is very warm and it's burning up and consuming defilements. When you're heating your energy of devotion, it's burning the defilements of laziness and so on and all. So that means being ardor or ardent, meaning that you need to actually burn the calories. He has, thus he is ardent. Who has ardor? The possessor of ardor is ardent. Sagacious. It is understanding called sagacity. The sagacity means possessing, that is the meaning, This word shows protective understanding. The understanding is mentioned 3 times in the reply to the question. Here in the first is naive understanding. Second is understanding consisting in insight. And while the third is a protective understanding that guides all affairs. He sees fear in the rounds of rebirth. Thus he is a bhikkhu. So he's escaping from the fear of not just rebirth from one life to next life, but repetitive, perpetuated behavior that one is entangled by. So one tries to cut the perpetuation of bad habits. So that's why he sees fear. He sees fear in himself repeating the past mistakes again in thoughts, words, and deeds. And thus he is a bhikkhu. Bhikkhu is the one who has renounced that bad habit. He succeeds in disentangling the tangle. Yeah. So Just as a man standing on a ground and taking up a well-sharpened knife might disentangle a great tangle of bamboos. You know, people working in the woods, they do that. They take an axe or something like that, and they cut all clear the wood. So too, this bhikshu who possessed 6 things, namely this virtue and his concentration described under the heading of consciousness, this threefold understanding and this ardor, standing on the ground of virtue and taking up the hand of protective understanding exerted by the power of energy of the knife of insight. See, the knife of insight is used in very classic Theravadin literature. So Mahayana has just simply taken up the wording knife of insight into wisdom. So sword of wisdom is not an original Mahayana thing. It's a knife of insight, well sharpened on the stone of concentration. You see? So they use the meditation as the stone on which your knife will be sharpened. Might disentangle, cut away and demolish all the tangle of craving that had overgrown his own life's continuity. Yeah, we are completely cut in the cobweb. Those towns where nobody lives, has a couple of years after you go there, most of the buildings covered in dust. Just like that. Sentient being has been completely covered in the overgrown craving. And when one develops the knife of insight, then he well sharpened on the stone of meditative concentration, he will be able to demolish that. But it is at the moment of the path that he is said to be disentangling that tangle. So when do you see the disentanglement? When you follow the path. When you are following the path is like the person who's clearing the woods. He has to put a lot of sweat and tear to cut the woods, to clear the path. Likewise, practicing Dharma isn't enjoying and feeling high and good and without any problem. He's not disentangling anything. He's just simply indulging in some temporary sensory gratification. That's not practicing Dharma. So practicing Dharma requires to get your hands wet, get your hands dirty, and having to work with the overgrown as an image of an overgrown bush. You have to completely disentangle that. That is said to be disentangling the tangle while on the path. While on the path, you will have all this disentangling very discomforting you. At the moment of fruition, he has disentangled the tangle and is worthy of highest offering in the world with his deities. So that's why people make offering to the bhikkhus and ordained sanghas. Because they themselves desire anything like that. They do not go to save and earn and put another saving there, another saving there. They don't go on that. They have completely cleared up such a disentanglement of craving and saving and keeping and investing and all of that. So that's why it's called Blessed One Said. Blessed One said, when a wise man established well in virtue, develop consciousness, understanding, then as a bhikshu ardent and sagacious, he succeeds in disentangling this tangle. So they're talking about how to disentangle the tangle through one's self-discipline. Here, there is nothing for him to do about the naive understanding on account of which he is called wise, for that he has been established in him simply by influence of previous karma. But the words ardent and sagacious mean that by persevering with energy of the kind here described and by acting in full awareness with understanding, he should, by having some well-established in virtue, develop the serenity and insight that are described as concentration and understanding. This is how the Blessed One shows the path of purification under the heading of virtue, concentration, and that through the concentration, which is meditation, develop the understanding, which is the wisdom, which is the pratya. What has been shown so far is 3 trainings. The dispensation, that is in a good 3 ways, the necessary condition for the threefold clear vision, etc., the avoidance of 2 extremes, and the cultivation of the middle way. True extreme meaning, eternalism, nihilism. So middle way is taught. You didn't have to wait some Nagarjuna to appear to teach middle way is already taught by the Buddha. People all think that Nagarjuna is some kind of a founder or codifier of middle way. Middle way is already taught in the first sermon by the Buddha. So middle way is not some kind of Chandrakirti and Nagarjuna stuff. They may have written very nice works on them, but actual middle way is taught by the Buddha. What is the middle way? Avoidance of the two extremes. Cultivation of the middle way, the means to surmounting the states of loss, gain, such all the eight worldly dharmas, yeah, overcoming the eight worldly dharmas. So you don't get puffed up by praise. You don't get distressed with the disparagement. You see both of these as a cause of disentanglement. Liking the praise. Even you get one is no good sign. It's an entanglement anyway. If you get even if you get disparagement, one shouldn't get one shouldn't have aversion to that. And so one who has developed the self-discipline will not look for gain, will not suffer, will not bemoan loss, because he has actually renounced. He's renouncing is good for him, and not gaining praise is good for his ego, and not needing any praise is good for his ego. Surmounting the states of loss, abandoning the defilements of three aspects, prevention of transgression, purification from three kinds of defilement, and the reason for the state of stream entry, and so on. Yeah, so when you are doing these practices, then you enter the stream. Enter the stream means your consciousness is unimpededly following the way. So stream entry, they call it stream entry. Of course, mentally first you have to hear, then you think, and then you do meditation in order to actually experience the stream entry. How? It says, here the training of three higher virtue is shown by virtue. The training of higher consciousness by concentration. Higher consciousness means wisdom. So the wisdom is obtained by concentration, which is meditation, and the training of higher understanding by understanding. Yeah. So the dispensation's goodness is in the beginning is shown by virtue because of the passage. And what is beginning of profitable things? Virtue that is quite purified, and because of the passage beginning. The no doing of any evil, so not doing of any evil, is virtue is the abstention of not doing any non-virtue. Abstention from non-virtue is the beginning of the dispensation. And that is good because it brings one about the special qualities of non-remorse. Non-remorse meaning you may have remorse over the past, but in the meantime, you no longer are repeating those mistakes because you are abstaining from those remorseful activities now. So while, of course, one will have small remorse about the past, but one no longer is depressed about today or tomorrow or every day thereafter, because one is actually abstaining from the non-virtuous deeds. And because of not doing the non-virtuous deeds, you have qualities of non-remorse, means joy. Joy that you are no longer doing that, joy that you are on the path, joy that you are actually making small and steady progress. Its goodness in the middle is shown by concentration. Because of the passage beginning, entering upon the profitable, the concentration is the middle of the dispensation. Concentration is permitted by the firm foundation of self-discipline, the virtue. So therefore, the virtue of self-discipline is the beginning of the concentration. At the middle of the concentration is being able to abstain that due to the power of the concentration. And that is good because it brings about the special quality of supernatural power. Then the person actually supernatural power. One has actually supernatural powers. Here, supernatural, supernormal power, and so on is referred to. But of course, you will see the actually tangible transformation in you. its goodness in the end is shown by the understanding. That's the prajna, the wisdom. Because of the passage, the purifying of one's own mind, this is the Buddha's dispensation. And because understanding is its culmination, understanding means wisdom, yeah? Wisdom, it means prajna. And understanding is the end of the dispensation. You have lots of understanding. Sometimes they translate the right view as a right understanding. So therefore, when we're using the words, this is a Venerable Jnana Mallika's translation. Jnana Mallika is an incredible German monk, you know. He translated this Vishuddhimagga in 1925, I think. And has gone through few revision and so on, and this is his translation, you know, and it is this digital publication has a preface by His Holiness Dalai Lama, who actually, I don't know whether he read it or not, but at least his secretaries wrote a one-page preface to it. How important it is! Incredible German monk, you know. When you read about those few towering Western scholars, a student who went to Sri Lanka and studied there, became not only monastic but studied Pali, thoroughly learned Pali and translated from Pali into English, you know. So he and many other, quite a handful number of scholars, incredible work they have done. In Pali Text Society has done lots of good work. You know, we should rejoice this kind of Dharma activities. You know, they may not have the royal patronage, or they may not have. You know, these days some Western academics get thousands of dollars get paid by doing some book translations. You know, this kind of monastics like Jnana Mallika, the incredible devotion and charity, giving their time to translate everything without asking for any kind of thing that modern academics always put a price tag to their hours. No, he just completely translated this Vishuddhimagga to the delight of people like you and me. So he used the word understanding for prajna. He translated the concentration for meditation. He translated virtue for morality or self-discipline. So we need to therefore understand that. And that is good because it brings, the end of the dispensation is understanding, wisdom. That's its culmination. It is good because it brings about equipoise with respect to the desired and undesired. For this is said, just as a solid massive rock remains unshaken by the wind, so too in the face of praise and blame, the wise remain immovable. It's very important. You know, why the wise remain immovable and not puffed up by the praise? Because he's not attached to, he's not entangled with the niceties. Why is not moved by blame? Because he's not attached. He's not aversion to sufferings and their causes, because suffering cannot be caused by others by blaming to you. Suffering is exacerbated by your attachment to thinking they're blaming me. So because of that, nobody's blame harms the mendicant. The mendicant is true mendicant. He's not seeking praise. It's dangerous. Praise is dangerous. If blame is good, that's why in my inner teaching said the blame, accept all the blames. Why? The blames at least might help you to disentangle your entanglement. You know, that's when you're morally and emotionally fit. You will think like that. When people blame you, people criticize you, people backbite you, you do not get upset or retaliate or try to clear your name, all that sort of rubbish, you know. Incredible. The world is full of entanglement. And so you do not get moved by praise to the one level and moved by blame another level. You remain like a massive rock. That is what the teaching says. This is quotation from a sutra. Likewise, the necessary condition for the triple vision, clear vision, is shown by virtue. So virtue means shila, the one who has a shila. You have a shila because you have the shila not only to abstain from non-virtue, but also prescribe virtue and neutralize the non-virtue and transform non-virtue into virtue. That is what I mean by being a rock, massive rock that you don't move. For with the support of perfect virtue, which is sila, one arrives at the three kinds of clear vision, but nothing beside that. The necessary condition for the 6 kinds of direct knowledge, there are 6 kinds of direct knowledge shown by concentration. This is meditation. For with the support of the perfected concentration, one arrives at the 6 kinds of direct knowledge. 6 kinds of direct knowledge means the 6 sense organs having kind of supernormal knowledge, but nothing beside that. The necessary condition for the category of discrimination is shown by understanding. For with the support of perfected understanding, one arrives at the 4 kinds of discrimination, but not for any other reasons. The avoidance, and the avoidance of extreme, remember 2 extremes we're talking about, called devotion to indulgence to the sense desires, because you are now avoiding your indulgence to sense desires, because you have the virtue to abstain the sense desires. Avoidance extreme called devotion, the mortification of self is shown by concentration. So both avoidance of extremes of indulge and extremes of self-mortification are remedied by shila and samadhi. Not indulging into indulgence, sensory indulgence is the abstention by self-discipline. That's a shila. Shila means that you actually have the self-discipline to restrain non-virtues. Restrain non-virtues, practice virtue, transform neutral into virtues. And by doing this, one is also avoiding the extreme called mortification of self, shown by meditative concentration. When your meditative concentration is good, then you actually do not become attached to the self. The cultivation of the middle way is shown by understanding. See, these 3, shila, samadhi, and prajna, are the remedies for realizing middle way. Middle way is not some dry philosophical texts and ideas that came in Nalanda. Middle way is taught by the Buddha. Middle way is taught by Buddha. Nagarjuna and Chandakirti wrote shastras, commentaries, writings on the texts. Like here, Venerable Buddhagosha is doing. Likewise, the means for surmounting the states of loss is shown by virtue. The means for surmounting the elements of sense desires by concentration. Means for surmounting all becoming by understanding. So meditation stops the elements of sense desire. When the senses are craving, wanting objects, so on, the meditation restrains them from swaying the mind to objects of desire and craving and so on. So through meditation, you must therefore have meditation in order to surmount craving. You need wisdom to stop becoming. From becoming not only rebirth one life after another, but becoming in terms of creating situations. And the abandoning of defilements by substitution of opposites is shown by virtue, that by suppression is shown by concentration, that by cutting off is shown by understanding. Likewise, the prevention of defilements, transgression is shown by virtue, prevention of obsession by defilements is shown by concentration, prevention of inherent tendency is shown by understanding. So one is preventing the the inherent tendency, means stubbornness or grasping, is therefore shown by understanding, means right view. Right view doesn't allow you to develop the clinging. And purification from the defilements of misconduct is shown by virtue. Purification from the defilements by craving, by concentration. Purification from the defilements of false views by understanding the right view. Likewise, the reason for the states of stream entry and one's return is shown by virtue. So when you have a good practice of Shila, which is the abstention from non-virtue, and practicing the virtue, transforming the neutral into virtue, this therefore makes your consciousness to enter the stream. By the Shila enables you to do that, not only stream entry, but also one's returning. For that, the state of non-return by concentration. For that, by arhatship, by understanding. See even the arhathood from stream entry to one's returner, non-returner to arhathood. These also totally depend on the three: the Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna. For the stream enterer is called perfected in the kinds of virtue, and likewise the one's returner. But the non-returner is called perfected in concentration, because there's a difference between perfected in the virtue and perfected in the concentration. And Arhat is called perfected in the understanding, which is the right view. So is even within the four Arhathood stages of stream entry to one's returner, non-returner to the Arhathood, you can see the Shila and the Samadhi and Prajna all features accordingly to those levels. So thus far, these 9 and other like triads of special qualities have been shown. That is the 3 trainings. Yeah, 3 trainings. 3 trainings are discipline, discipline, meditation, and wisdom. The dispensation that is good in 3 ways: the necessary condition for the threefold vision, and avoidance of true extremes, and the cultivation middle way. The means for surmounting states of loss, gain, etc., abandoning of defilements, 3 aspects, prevention of transgression, etc., and purification of 3 kinds of defilements, and the reason for the states of stream entry, and so on. So that's the general kind of introduction to the concept of a Shila. Shila, also discipline. Second is however, even when this path of purification is shown in this way, under the headings of virtue, Shila, concentration, the Samadhi, understanding, the wisdom, each comprising various special qualities, it is still only shown extremely briefly. So what we have just discussed is very, very brief. That's just an overview of it. And so, since that is insufficient to help all, there is, in order to show in detail, the following set of questions dealing with in the first place, with virtue. So, there are 8 questions. What is virtue? In what sense is it virtue? 2. 3. What is its characteristic, function, manifestation, proximate cause? 4. What are the benefits of virtue? How many kinds of virtue are there? 6. What is the defiling of it? And then 7, it should be 7, they written 8 to be a printing error. What is the cleansing of it, So under these 7 subjects, 7 questions, this subject of virtue, subject of the Shila will be discussed. Here are the answers. What is virtue? It is state beginning with volition, present in one who abstains from killing living things, etc., and so on. So killing is just the first of the 3 misdeeds of physical body, and then verbally, and then mentally, and so on. I won't list them all, as most of you are fairly familiar student in Dharma. So 10 non-virtuous deeds. So abstaining from these, or one who fulfills the practice of the duties. Duties. For this is said in Patisambhida. What is virtue? There is virtue as volition, virtue as consciousness concomitant, virtue as restrained, virtue as non-transgression. Yeah, this is very important. This is virtue as volition, meaning if you're virtue, you are actually doing something that you weren't doing before, that you thought is good to do, but you haven't done. So you have to be seen to be doing, have a volition. Say, some people don't want to do anything, so it means there's no virtue. If you're doing something, there is a volition. Okay, that's one. Second is virtue as consciousness concomitant. Third is virtue as a restraint. By you doing the virtuous thing, you are restraining from not doing, or whatever the case might be. And fourth is virtue as non-transgression. So these are the meaning of what is virtue. So then we will explain. What is the just let's explain this for. He says, what herein virtue as volition is the volition present in one who abstains from killing living things, etc., or in one who fulfills the practice of duties. So that's the virtue of volition. Virtue as a consciousness concomitant is the abstinence in one who abstains from killing living beings and so on. So one who actually is now actually not doing killing. So virtue is consciousness concomitant. Third is virtue as a volition. Furthermore, virtue as volition is the seven volitions that accompany the first seven of the 10 courses of action in one who abandons killing of living beings and so on. Virtue as conscious concomitant is the three remaining states consisting of non-covetousness, non-ill will, and the right view, stated in the way of beginning. So that's the 10 non-virtues. Basically, one who is virtue is a conscious concomitance, virtue is volition. He or she has a volition to actually undo the killing and so on, because the volition is non-killing, non-stealing, all the way to the not doing wrong view. Wrong view. Abandoning covetousness, he dwells in the mind free from covetousness. So that's that. Then the third is virtue as restraint. Virtue as restraint should be understood here as restraint in 5 ways. First, restraint by rules of the community, patimoksha. So, for instance, a lay person or novice or fully ordained monks or nuns, they actually knows what are thou shalt nots. So the rules of the community. So because if their rule is not relevant unless you're living with the community. If you're living in the jungle by yourself, you wouldn't be telling lie to anybody. So only when you're living in a community there is something you must restrain. Yeah. So the rules by the restraint by the rules of community. First one. Second is restrained by mindfulness. Third is restrained by knowledge. Fourth is restrained by patience. 5, restrained by energy. He in restrained by patimoksha is thus he is fully furnished with this patimoksha restrained. Restrained by mindfulness, he guards the eye faculties. He guards his nose, ears faculty, enters upon restraints of his eye faculty. So basically, he doesn't look hither and thither, always looking for something, So not much window shopping, I suppose. Yeah, you basically stay very content with what you have, and not go window shopping, and not always looking for something, Just looking, they call it. But it's the just looking that gets you looking, and they can't keep your eyes off it. So restraining from just looking, restraining from reading the catalogs. Restrained by knowledge is the current in the world that flow, Ajita, said the Blessed One, are stemmed by means of mindfulness. Restraint of currents, I proclaim, by understanding they are damned. And use of requisites is here combined with this. And that, what is called restraint by patience, is that given in the way beginning. Here one who bears the cold and heat and doesn't complain about the heat, cold, and hardships. That is restrained by patience. What is called restrained by energy is that given in the way beginning, he does not endure a thought of sense desires when it arises. When sense desire arises, he doesn't give in to it. He doesn't get overwhelmed by it. He doesn't get swayed by it. Why? He has restrained by his energy. He controls his energy. Purification of livelihood is here contained in this. So this fivefold restraint and abstinence in clansmen of a dread evil from any chance of transgression met with should all be understood to be virtue as restraint. Virtue as restraint. Virtue as a non-transgression is non-transgression by body, speech of precepts of virtue that has been undertaken. So meaning one deliberately makes sure do not break the precepts of virtue that has been undertaken. Meaning precepts, those one has undertaken. Those one says promise to say I want. That this, in the first place, is the answer to the question, what is virtue? So that's the question. So that's the answer to this first of the 7 questions. Second is, in what sense it is virtue? It is virtue, Shila, in the sense of composing Shilana. See that they are explaining the etymology of the word Shila. Sense of composing Shilana. What is this composing? It is either coordinating samadhana, meaning non-inconsistency of bodily action, etc., due to virtuousness, or it is an upholding upadharana, meaning the state of basis, owing to its serving as a foundation for profitable states. For those who understand etymology admit only these 2 meanings. Others, however, comment on the meaning here in the way beginning. The meaning of virtue is the meaning of head, Shira as Ra, and meaning of virtue as a meaning of a cool, Shira. So one is Shira, which is head. One is meaning protect your head, protecting your head. And meaning of virtue in the cooling meaning is Shila. Shitala means it's a meaning of cool. Because it calms you, it calms your heat. It cools your heat of desire or craving or anger or whatever when you are practicing the virtue. So that is the sense what virtue is. Now the third question is, what are the characteristic, function, manifestation, approximate cause? This is a very big question, by the way. Just as the visibleness is the characteristic of the visible data base when even analyzed in the various categories of blue, yellow, etc., because when even analyzed into this category, it does not exceed the visibleness. So also, this same composing described above as a coordinating of the bodily action, etc., and as the foundation of profitable states, is the characteristic of virtue even when analyzed into various categories of volition, etc., because even when analyzed into these categories, it does not exceed the state of coordination and foundation. While such is the characteristics, its function has double sense. The function of virtue, what is the function of virtue? Is action to stop misconduct, and then achievements as the quality of blamelessness of a virtuous man. So that's the kind of characteristic is one has stopped the misconduct. And also it's you have to stop the misconduct and have achieved the quality of having stopped that, and then you yourself don't have guilt, others don't blame you, and others don't disrespect you, and so on. So these are the characteristics of what is a virtue is. So what is called virtue should be understood to have function. What is function is the nature of stopping misconduct, and its function in the sense of action as a blameless function nature, as its function mature nature is the sense of achievement. So you no longer have any worries. Nobody give you a damn look or disregard look. For under these headings of characteristics, it is action and its achievement, sampatti. Now you have some wealth of joy and fearlessness and lack of remorse and lack of competitiveness and lack of judgment. You don't judge others. When you do your own thing, you don't judge others. When you're judging others, meaning you have your own flaws that you are trying to hide. So one who has no flaws doesn't judge others. He treats them with compassion, saying, "This I used to be like that too," type of thing. So therefore, the person is completely free of the worry, competitiveness, righteousness, and judgment. That's the function of virtue. It's amazing, isn't it? You could see that when you no longer judge somebody, it's because you have virtue. You have virtues of humility, with others, no competitive with the equals, no arrogance with the junior, no jealousy to the superior. Why? Because you have the virtue of not doing any of that. So that's the function. That's the function of virtue, Shila. The function of Shila doesn't mean that you don't do this, he does that, and you are better than him, and then you feel better than him. That's exactly opposite. So, exactly opposite. The arrogance of virtue is it's incorrect. It's a what we call pseudo virtue. That's just lip service virtue, makes yourself arrogant, and then think you have the right and license to judge others. No, the one who has virtue doesn't do any of that. Now, virtue, so say those who know, itself as purity will show, and for its proximate cause they tell the pair, the conscience and shame as well. So these two things, when you have virtue, you have conscience and shame. Conscience is to do with others, shame is to do with yourself. Because you feel embarrassed. You fear that you may upset others, you may make other people lose faith, and so on. And so therefore, this kind of is person who, this is the approximate cause. Approximate cause of virtue is that. This virtue is manifest as the kinds of purity, bodily purity, verbal purity, mental purity. It is manifest, comes to be apprehended as a pure state. But conscience and shame are said to be by those who know to be its proximate cause. It's near reason. Proximate cause means near reason, in the meaning. For when conscience and shame are in existence, virtue arises and persists. And when they are not, it neither arises nor persists. That's the kind of the proximate cause of it. This is how virtue's characteristic function manifest proximate cause should be understood. So that's the third question. Fourth question is, what are the benefits of virtue? It's pretty much has been stated by that. Benefits are acquisition of several qualities, special qualities, beginning with non-remorse. That you don't have any remorse. As it is said here, ananda. The profitable virtues, habits, have non-remorse as their aim and non-remorse as their benefit. Also, it is said further, householder, there are those 5 benefits for the virtues in the perfecting of virtue. What 5? Here, householder, one who is virtuous, possesses virtue, abstains large fortune as a consequence of diligence. This is the best benefit for the virtues and the perfecting virtue. Again, of one who is virtuous, possesses virtue, a fair name is spread abroad. Not that you will be seeking one, but people will speak kindly about you. A good name, good reputation, that's what it said. This is second benefit of virtues and the perfecting of virtue. Again, whenever one who is virtuous, possesses virtue, enters an assembly, whether of Khatiyas, meaning Khatiya means the Kshetris, that the warrior nobles, or Brahmins, or householders, or ascetics, he does so without fear. He doesn't have have any kind of embarrassment. He doesn't feel fearful or unsure. He doesn't have any timidity or hesitation because he's amazing confidence. His courage is incredible. This is the third benefit of the virtues in perfecting virtue. Again, one who is virtuous, possesses virtue, dies unconfused. He doesn't die with regret. He doesn't die with fear. He doesn't die with enmity, anger, blaming. So that's the person who have lived a virtuous life doesn't have any regret. That's what it's talking about. This is the fourth benefit for the virtues in the perfecting virtue. Again, one who is virtuous possesses virtue on the breakup of body, the breakup of body, illness, sickness, whatever, after death, reappears in a happy destiny. Yeah, he or she will get a good rebirth. You don't even have to book one because it's already there. You will get a new rebirth. In heavenly world, this is the fifth benefit of the virtue in the perfecting virtue. So this is fairly basic Buddhist teaching. Yeah, creating virtue will give you a good higher rebirth and so on. It's very important to know these things. There are also many benefits of virtue, beginning with being dear and loved, ending with the destruction of cankers, described in the passage beginning. If a bhikkhu should wish, may I be dear to my fellows in the life of purity and loved by them, held in respect and honored by them, let him perfect the virtues. Anybody who wanted to have this, they should have virtues. They should have tolerance. They should be non-violent. They should be kind words, speak kind words. Then people naturally will respect you. This is how virtue has its benefit in several special qualities, beginning with the non-remorse. So these are the amazing things that the sutras talks about. These are very authentic teachings, very original. There's nothing mysterious about it. These are sensible ones. Furthermore, dare anyone a limit place on benefits that virtue brings, without which virtue clansmen find no footing in the dispensation. No Ganges or no Yamuna, no Sarabu or Saraswati or flowing Achiravati, these names of rivers, O noble river of Mahi, is able to wash out sins. See? In Mahayana, usually we have a quotation saying that the follower of Buddhists do not wash their negative karma with water. So here it says that is able to say, no, or noble river of Mahi is able to wash out the stains in things that breathe here in this world. For only virtuous water can wash out the stains in living beings. You see? Since one's own practice of Dharma washes your stains. No holy water of Ganges, no holy water of Mount Kailash. They may drown you, be careful. No breezes that come bring rain, no balm of yellow sandalwood, no necklaces beside or gems, or soft effulgence of moonbeams can here avail the calm and soothe man's fever in this world, whereas this noble, this fervently cool, supremely cool, well-guarded virtue quells the flame. So this talks about how one's discipline will actually will extinguish the fire, a flame of suffering. Where is there to be found the scent that can with virtuous scent compare, that is borne against the wind as easily as with it? Where can such another stair be found that climbs as virtue does to heaven, or yet another door that gives unto the city of Nirvana? Even to the city of Nirvana. The best smell, all these things, is one who observes the disciplines. Not perfumes, not any other kind of things that you anoint your body, not try to embellish your body or ear or nose or whatever you try to think your belongings are special. They're all completely another kind of entanglement. Shine as they may, they are no kings, adorned with jewelries and pearls, that shine as does a man restrained, adorned with virtue's ornaments. ornament. Virtue entirely does away with dread of self-blame and the like. Their virtue to the victorious gives gladness always by its fame. So it's talking about virtue. From this brief sketch, it may be known how virtue brings reward, and how this root of all good qualities robs of its power every fault. Now, here is the answer to the question: how many kinds of virtue are there? Firstly, all this virtue is one kind by reason of its own characteristic of composing. It is of two kinds, as keeping and avoiding. Likewise, as that of good behavior and that of beginning of the life of purity, as abstinence and non-abstinence, as dependent and independent, as a temporary and lifelong, as limited and unlimited, as mundane and supramundane. It is of three kinds: inferior, medium, and superior. Likewise, as giving precedence of self, giving precedence to the world, and giving precedence to the Dharma. As adhere to, not adhere to, and tranquilize, as purified, unpurified, and dubious, as that of the trainer, that of the non-trainer, and that of the neither trainer nor non-trainer. It is of four kinds, as partaking of diminution, stagnation, distinction, and penetration. Likewise, as that of bhikshus, bhikshunis, and non-fully admitted or of laity, as natural, customary, necessary, due to previous causes. So, as virtue of pratimoksha, restraint of sense faculties, of purification of livelihood, and that concerning requisites. It is five kinds, as virtue consisting in limiting purification, etc. For this is said in the Patisambhadita, five kinds of virtue: virtue consisting in limiting purification, virtue consisting in unlimited purification, virtue consisting in fulfilled purification, virtue consisting in unadhered to purification, virtue consisting in untranquilized purification. Likewise, as abandoning, refraining, volition, restraint, and non-transgression. We listed those five. Herein, in the section dealing that of one kind, because they have listed all the 19 kinds, the meaning should be understood as already stated. The section dealing with the two kinds is fulfilling our training precept announced by the Blessed One, thus should be done. Is keeping, not doing what is prohibited by him, thus thou shalt not be done, is avoiding. Here the word meaning is this: they keep charanti, meaning within that, they proceed as people who fulfill virtue, thus it is keeping. They preserve, they protect, they avoid, thus it is avoiding. Herein, keeping is accomplished by faith and energy, avoiding by faith and mindfulness. This is how it is of two kinds of keeping and avoiding. It is the second diet, good behavior, is the best kind of behavior. Good behavior is itself is that of good behavior, and or what is announced for the sake of good behavior is that of the good behavior. This is a term for virtue other than that which has a livelihood as eighth. It is the initial stage of life of purity, consisting in the practice path. Thus, it is in the beginning of life of purity. Thus, this is a term for the virtue that has livelihood as eighth. In the initial stage of path, because it has actually to be purified in the prior stage too. Hence, it is said that, but his bodily action, his verbal action, his livelihood have already been purified earlier, or the training precepts called lesser and minor, and are that of good behavior. Rest of that of the beginning of the life of purity, or what is included in the double code for bhikkhu and bhikkhunis is that of beginning of the life of purity, and that included in the duty set out in the khandakas of Vinaya is that of the good behavior. Through its perfection, that of the beginning of the life purity comes to be perfected. Hence, it is said that also that this bhikkhu shall fulfill the state consisting in the beginning of life of purity without being fulfilled, the state consisting of good behavior. It is not possible. So it is two kind, as that of the behavior and that of the beginning of a life of purity. In the third diet, virtue as abstinence is simply abstaining from killing living beings, etc. Other kinds consisting in volition, etc., are virtue as non-abstinence. So it is two kinds of abstinence and non-abstinence. The fourth diet, there are two kinds of dependence: dependence through craving and dependence through false views. Herein that produced by one who wishes for a fortunate kind of becoming, thus through this virtuous conduct, right, I shall become a great deity or some minor deity, is dependent through craving. That produced through such false views about purification, as purification is through virtuous conduct, is dependent through false view. But the supramundane and mundane, that is prerequisites for the aforesaid supramundane, is independent. That is of the two kinds of the dependent and independent. Sixth, the fifth diet, temporary virtue, is the undertaking after deciding on a time limit. Lifelong virtue is practiced in the same way, but undertaking it for as long as life lasts. So it is two kinds, as a temporary and lifelong. Because there are temporary disciplines people take, yes, precepts, as short as 24 hours, as few as 5, and so on. Others take some of them for life. Others take like full ordination for life, and so on. So that's what we're talking about. In the sixth diet, limited is that seen to be limited by gain, fame, relatives, limbs, or life. The opposite is unlimited. And this is said to be said in the Patisambhida. What is the virtue that has a limit? There is a virtue that has gain as its limit. There is virtue that has fame as its limit. There is virtue that has relatives as its limit. There is virtue that has limbs as its limit. There is virtue that has limit as its limit. And what is virtue that has gain as a limit? Here, someone with gain as cause, gain as condition, gain as reason, transgresses precept, training precept as undertaking. Virtue has a gain as its limit. And the rest should be elaborated in the same way. Also in the same answer dealing with unlimited, it is said, what is virtue that does not gain at a limit? Here someone does not, with gain as cause, with gain as condition, as gain as reason, and even arouse the thought of transgressing or taking precept as undertaking. How then shall he actually transgressed? That virtue does not have gain as its limit. And the rest should be elaborate in the same way. So it is these two kinds of limited, unlimited. In the seventh diet, all virtue should subject to cankers is mundane. That not subject to canker is supermundane. Herein the mundane brings about improvement in future becoming and is prerequisites for the escape from becoming. According to it is said, discipline is for the purpose of restraint. Restraint is for the purpose of non-remorse. Non-remorse is for the purpose of gladdening. Gladdening is for the purpose of happiness. Happiness for the purpose of tranquility. Tranquility is the purpose of bliss. Bliss is the purpose of concentration. Concentration is the purpose of correct knowledge and vision. Correct knowledge and vision is for the purpose of dispassion. Dispassion is for the purpose of fading away of greed. Fading away is for the purpose of deliverance. Deliverance is the purpose of knowledge and vision on deliverance. Knowledge and vision of deliverance is the purpose of complete extinction of craving, etc. through non-clinging. Talk has that purpose, counsel has that purpose, support has that purpose, giving ear has that purpose, and that is to say the liberation of the mind through not clinging. The supermundane brings about the escape from the becoming, and is the plane of reviewing knowledge. So it is of the two kinds of the mundane and the supermundane. In the ninth one is the diet of the triads of the inferior is produced by inferior zeal, purity of consciousness, energy and inquiry. Medium is produced by medium zeal, and the superior is by superior zeal, and so on. That undertaken out of desire for fame is inferior. That undertaken out of desire for the fruits of merit is medium. That undertaken for the sake of the noble states, this has done superior. So this idea of inferior, medium, and superior, that the Mahayana sometimes talk about people of three levels of intelligence, is nothing Mahayana about it. It says that so the person who is inferior is doing virtuous things for the seeking of fame, worldly fame and respect. So that's done for worldly dharma, and desire for fruits of merit, thinking there is merit in the more merit than fame, that's a medium. And then for the sake of arahathood is a superior. See? So therefore we shouldn't think that Atisha all of a sudden made up in his dream about these three levels with intelligence. So beginner, so the inferior people who wanted to merely gain higher rebirth, and then others wanted to escape samsara, others wanted to gain nirvana. So this kind of thing is nothing new that Atisha coined or invented. It's already there. This whole notion of inferior, medium, and superior. So therefore, three kinds of superior, medium, and superior. Inferior, medium, and superior exist according to the intention. So there is nothing necessarily a unique thing that the Mahayana has invented. The second triad that practice out of self-regard by one who regards all and desires to abandon what is unbecoming of self is virtue giving precedence to self. That practice out of regard for the world and out of desire to ward off a censure of the world is giving virtue precedent to the world. That practice out of regard for dharma and out of desire for honor to honor the majesty of the dharma is virtue giving precedence to dharma. So it is three kinds of giving precedent to self and so on. And the 11th is in the triad, third triad of virtue that is in the diets called dependent, is adhered to because it is adhered to through craving and false views. That practiced by the magnanimous ordinary man as the prerequisites for path, and that associated with the path trainers is not adhered to. That associated with the trainers and non-trainers, fruition is trangulized, so it is three kinds of adhere to, and so on. The fourth triad that fulfilled by one who has committed no offense or has made amends after committing one is pure. So long as he has not made amends after committing an offense is impure. Virtue is one who is dubious. Virtue in one who is dubious about whether a thing constituted offense, or about what grade of offense has been committed, or about whether he has committed an offense is dubious. Wherein the meditator should purify impure virtue. If dubious, he should avoid cases about which he is doubtful and should get his doubts cleared up. In this way, his mind will be kept to rest. So it is three kinds as pure and so on. In the fifth triad of virtue, associated with the four paths and with the three fruitions, is that of the trainer. That associated with the fruition of arahatship is that of the non-trainer. The remaining kinds are that of neither the trainer, non-trainer. So it is three kinds as that of the trainer and so on. But in the world, the nature of such and such being is called their habit, shila, of which they say one who is happy habit, you mean sukha shila. This one is unhappy habit. This one is quarrelsome habit. This one is this dandified habit. Because of that, it is said in the Patisambhida figuratively 3 kinds of virtue: profitable virtue, unprofitable virtue, and indeterminate virtue. So it is called 3 kinds of profitable, kinds as profitable, etc. Of these, the unprofitable is not included here, since it has nothing whatsoever to do with the heading beginning with the characteristic, which define virtue in the sense intended in this chapter. So the threefoldness should be understood only by the way already stated. In the rest of the tetrads, the non-virtue he cultivates, he visits not the virtues, and in his ignorance he sees no fault in a transgression here. With wrong thoughts often in his mind, his faculties he will not regard. Virtue in such constitution comes to partake of diminution. But he whose mind is satisfied with the virtue he has achieved, he never thinks of stir himself and make a meditation subject up. Content with the mere virtuousness, nor striving for a higher state, his virtue bears the appellation of that partaking of stagnation. But who possess of virtue strives with concentration for his aim. That bhikshu's virtue in its function is called partaking of distinction. He who finds mere virtue not enough, but has dispassion for his goal, his virtue through such aspiration comes to partake of penetration. So it is 4 kinds of partaking of diminution and so on. In the second triad, there are training precepts announced for bhikshus to keep irrespective of what is announced for bhikshunis. This is a virtue of bhikkhus. There are training precepts announced for bhikkhunis to keep irrespective of what is announced for bhikkhus. This is virtue of bhikkhunis. 10 precepts of virtue for male and female novices are virtue of the non-fully admitted. The 5 trainings precepts, 10 when possible as a permanent undertaking, and as 8 of the factors of the Uposatha day on the day one takes the precepts for male and female lay followers are the virtues of the laity. So it is 4 kinds of virtues of bhikshus and so on. So 4 kinds meaning those 4 types of sanghas. In the third tetrad of non-transgression of the part of Uttarakuru human beings is a natural virtue. Each clans or localities or sects' own rules of conduct are customary virtue. The virtue of Bodhisattva mother described thus: it is necessary, rule Ananda, when the Bodhisattva has descended into mother's womb, no thought of man that is reconnected with the concord of desire comes to her. It is a necessary virtue, but the virtue of such pure beings as Mahakashyapa, etc., and of the Bodhisattva in his virtuous birth is virtue due to previous causes. So is of 4 kinds of natural virtues, so on. So it's talking about various virtues that are natural inclination of people. In the 4th tetrad, the virtue described by Blessed One is thus: here a bhikkhu dwells restrained, with patimoksha restrained, possessed of the proper conduct and resort, seeing fear in the slightest fault, he trains himself by undertaking the precepts of training, is the virtue of patimoksha restraint. So this is those who have patimoksha restraint. And that described thus: on seeing the visible object with the eye, he apprehends neither the sign nor the particulars through which if he left the eye faculty unguarded, evil and unprofitable states of covetousness and grief might invade him. He He enters upon the way of restraint. He guards the eye faculty, undertakes the restraint of eye faculty, or hearing the sound of the ear, on smelling an odor of the nose, on tasting the flavor of the tongue, on touching the tangible object with the body, on cognizing the mental object with the mind. He apprehends neither the signs nor the particulars through which, if he left the mind faculty unguarded, evil and unprofitable states of covetousness, grief might invade him. He enters upon the way of his restraint. He guards the mind faculty, undertakes the restraint of mind faculty, is virtue of restraint of the sense faculties. Abstinence from such wrong livelihood as entails transgression of the 6 training precepts announced with respect to livelihood, and entails the evil states beginning with scheming, talking, hinting, belittling, pursuing gain with gain, is virtue of livelihood of purification. So when they talking about wrong livelihood, they usually talk about hinting and trying to make people give you something or do this for you, or this kind of wrong livelihood that's talking about one who's having their virtue of livelihood of purification will not do scheming, talking, hinting, belittling, pursuing again and again with gain, and giving gifts to get more gifts. That they don't do that. The use of 4 requisites, that is purified by the reflected state in the way beginning, reflecting wisely, he uses the robe only for protection from cold, is called virtue concerning requisites. His requisites are very simple. It's not more than 1 or 2 pairs, and not seeking more than that. So that's the kind of contentment, virtue concerning requisites. So that's really very controlled in terms of how much your need and want are, because you have very limited want and your need is even very, very minimum. Here is an explanatory exposition together with the word commentary starting with from the beginning. Here in this dispensation, bhikkhu, a clansman who has gone forth out of faith and is styled because he sees fear in the round of rebirth, or because he wears clothes, garments that are torn and pieces together and so on, is called bhikkhu. So because the word bhikkhu actually means one who lives on alms. So he wears tattered clothes given by people's unwanted pieces of cloth and joined together and wearing that. So that traditionally it has to be a rag, one who is wearing rags, wearing rags made out of many rags put together. Restraint with pratimoksha, with restraint is pratimoksha, rule of community, is the virtue of training precepts, for it frees. Moksha means, mokati means, frees him who protects it, guards it. He doesn't have to think, I have to guard this, I have to stop that from getting, ruined or decayed or getting old or whatever. He doesn't, he's free. He's free from protecting things. He's free to guard things. He sets himself free from the pains of the worry, of the loss and the states of loss, fear of not gaining. That is why it's called patimoksha. Patimoksha means individually liberated. You get individually, whatever you do, each of the things you abstain from gives you liberation from that. I remember some Western nuns talking about benefit of being a nun. They say, oh, they don't have to worry about what they're wearing or where they're going. They always have one robe and that's it. Wherever they go, they have totally liberated from not worrying about what to wear, what is the occasion. I'm not that worried about clothing, but my daughter always says, Dad, you can't wear that. so I don't know what to wear. When we go out dinner, she says, hey, you can't go out wearing that. He says something isn't matching, something isn't quite right. So we live in supposed to be liberated, but not liberated. And your daughter passes remarks, you can't wear that. You're not liberated from nobody having no one to tell you what you shouldn't wear. But as an ordained person, you don't have anybody to tell, Dad, don't wear that. Brother, don't wear that. They're completely liberated. They're just completely liberated from having to worry, not to worry. So this patimokkha means there's amazing joy in the simplicity of things. Yeah. So restraining in this term from bodily, verbal, non-concentration, because he doesn't have to worry how he appears. He doesn't do things. He doesn't say things, and because of that, he's liberated. He doesn't have to worry what people say, because what people say doesn't harm him. He's protected. He's individually liberated by him not doing, him not thinking. He's got the self-discipline of not doing the things, so he's liberated. He doesn't need someone else to give him praise. He doesn't fear somebody blaming him, even if they do. It's good for his humility. He sees that. He's so liberated from not having to take offense very badly. It's good. He's quite happy to wear rags. So if people say that doesn't match your T-shirt with the bottom or whatever, he doesn't mind. Quite a lot of yogis are like that, completely carefree, delighted by their joy of discipline, their mindfulness, their devotion to Dharma. They don't have to. They're liberated. Pratimoksha. It means they're restrained. Restrained with pratimoksha. Restrained is restrained by means of restraint consisting of, in that pratimoksha, he has it, he possesses it, and he obtains it. He already is liberated from having to want anything. He has everything. He's not craving or wanting things. He's got everything. He's got the Dharma. He's got the discipline. He's got the samadhi. He's got the shila. He's got the prajna. So that is the meaning of patimokkha. So that's all the time we have. I'm afraid we couldn't finish the first chapter. I don't think we have to. We just read as far as we could. This is paragraph 45. We finish, which is up to paragraph 45. So please, if you have time, reflect on this. I enjoy reading it, because on the computer I can make it bigger, because the book I have is so thin, so small. This book is freely available, given to you, sent to you from Taiwan. There's a very amazing organization called the Corporate Body of Buddha Education Foundation. If you get a search, they will send all kinds of Buddhist books if you want. Just look through the catalog, they'll send it to you. But if you're an organization or something, they send all kinds of books. They're based in Taiwan, they give everything free. This is the Dharma Dana of these people. This is a hard-bound book, this is a thick book, But it prints are very small, particularly for my unliberated eye. But when you're on the PDF on the computer, you can make it as large as you want to. So it's a bit easier for me to read. So with this, we will conclude here. It has been very purificatory for me to sit here, read this, and we all listen. We give our time together every week like this. I'm sure we have very good reason to feel connected with this, our teachings of the elders, the Theravadins. How can you see them as a inferior or something? It's ridiculous. This kind of sarcastic terms that some sectarian people have invented, but we should never use them. This is the teachings of the elders, that the senior Dharma disciples of the Buddha and Pali, and they are very, very good. So we should rejoice every Dharma members, Dharma guru groups, without discriminating them with the robes and colors and language and ethnicity base. The world is becoming so small. We should not be fragmented by schools and lineages and tradition. We are all under one Buddha, and Dharma is so sweet, and so therefore we should have this openness to read and listen and study the other literatures, not just becoming what you call Nalanda-centric, not become Nalanda-centric. Nalanda only came after Nagarjuna, remember? There was a 700-year gap between Buddha and Nagarjuna. Who kept the Dharma going? People like Buddhagosha, and they kept the Dharma going, and we must totally have the reverence to them. Our lineage goes, because in the Mayan lineage gurus, they list Shakyamuni Buddha, Rahula, that's Buddha's son, and then Nagarjuna. They jump, they leap, they jump from Rahula to Shakyamuni to Nagarjuna. That's 700 years. Who's going to fill the gap? So Nagarjuna lived 600 years, born as a disciple of Rahula? Oh, come on, give me a break. That's not history. So there was incredible time gap between Nagarjuna. Even we give every respect to Nagarjuna's historicity, There are some who doesn't. Of course, we totally accept. But we mustn't think that Nagarjuna all of a sudden discovered all these texts in the middle of the ocean. Some Nagas gave to him that Buddha didn't teach. Who can believe that? Of course, other people will not believe that. Nagarjuna have no teachings that Buddha did not teach, that people like Buddhagosha did not have to pass down. So we must have this kind of a pure vision to see all lineages being the disciples of the Buddha, one Buddha. And there is no two Buddhas. There is only one historical Buddha. And we must know that. Tibetan Buddhists in particular, they tend to edify their teachers being superhuman and doesn't need to have kind of historical lineage teachings. Of course, some realized masters have that kind of pure vision teachings, but actual historical teaching came from the Buddha down through, Nagarjuna. But who got Nagarjuna didn't get straight from the Buddha because he wasn't around when the Buddha was. After Buddha passed away, there was Mahakashapa. He was the successor. Then Ananda, then Shanavasin, then Upagupta, then Sudarshana, then Venerable Krishna, and just seven patriarchs. Even 7 patriarchs doesn't take you, because Upagupta was a teacher of King Ashoka. That's only 300 BC. That's 300 BC. And then after Upagupta, there was Sudarshana, and then Krishna. So there were 7 patriarchs came like that. So that may be just like 200 BC. So 200 BC to 2nd century BC, 400 years, who covered the gap? We can't ignore that there were celebrated great masters like Buddhagosha and others, mainly Theravadins, mainly Indians, not Tibetans. Tibetans never even heard of Dharma even until 7th century. So they have to really think a little bit ahead, think a little bit further than Nalanda period, and try to see who hoisted the banner of Dharma all those 700 years until Nagarjuna passed this to us. So we should really open our hearts and look with pure vision to our Staviras, Theravada traditions and their teachings. Now, when you read what I read tonight, that's commentary Shastra nature. It's every word is nectar. There is nothing mysterious. You don't have to question anything. It's so sensible, so logical that the totally authentic to the teachings. How could we ever dare to call it as some kind of inferior people or lesser intelligence or something? It says in the teachings that people who are doing for fame, people who are doing for higher rebirth, people who are doing for liberation. It's already distinguished that even as early as in that. So it's not just Atisha in 11th century wrote this text called A Lamp to the Path of Enlightenment, then he made it up. No, he didn't. How can he do that? No, this kind of concept existed much earlier than that. So the whole idea is this, that we do not be so blinkered or narrow-minded to one school, one lineage, one tradition, but broaden our heart and mind to see how all of us, in spite of being segregated and fragmented by language, ethnicity, and not knowing about each other, all are in the same radiance of the one sun, like the Dharma, the warmth of which has kept us all from going very frozen. So we should rejoice all the other traditions, so that we allay our ignorance. The Theravadin teachings are holy teachings of the Dharma, taught by the Buddha, kept by the noble Sangha, most of whom achieve arhathood, and still practicing in a very, very disciplined way. So this is the purpose of us, why we wanted to read this. I'm glad you have joined me, and everyone, thank you. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, we'll do a little dedication merits so that we open our eyes and hearts and minds. O Bade Mere Mevaga Da Defa Menzage Homnes Meale Beredo Be from the ocean of Bada Desinande Erenda Mayana Dije Whatever following all the example. Excellent body cheda tebe vedanaya danza where it has been meeting freely without generation. Thank you, everyone.